Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the March 20th, 2024 meeting of the County Facilities Committee. We'll begin this morning with the airport agenda, and we'll start with the discussion and approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Supervisor Gerasi, second by Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? If not, I'll call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Supervisor McGowan abstains. Thank you. First off, the privilege of the floor, public comment. Any members of the public wishing to comment? Any other people? If not, we'll move down to the action agenda, new business items. Mr. Matt?
So the first one is a request for new contract, FAA lease for terminal space. Guys probably well aware, the FAA is currently leasing storage space on the second floor of the main terminal building for the National Weather Service, as well as equipment related to the instrument system. That agreement expires at September this year, so they were proactive in reaching out and renewing that agreement. So this new agreement will begin October 1st. The old agreement expires and run for a 20-year period. The initial 10-year period will be at $4,000 with a $1,000 increase after 10 years to $5,000 for the final 10 years of the agreement.
Very good. Motion to bring this to the floor. Supervisor Thomas, second by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, how much space are we talking about?
Oh, it's about 50 square feet, if I'm not mistaken.
So it's like.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Now I'll call a question. All of you in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, any abstentions? Carried, thank you. Next is
Lion.
miscellaneous fly-in.
So the second one is the Young Eagles Fly-In event on June 15th. This is the annual event they always have. It's always well attended, a very popular event among the young. They actually provided two alternate rain dates, June 16th and October 6th. So in case June 15th is washed up due to weather, then we have the backup events.
And you need our approval for that?
Usually we seek your approval every year for this
Yep.
one.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Supervisor Stroud, second. Supervisor Thomas.
Maybe, and just Supervisor Stroud, you saying that maybe we just do this for a 5-year period as opposed to bringing it back every year,
Yeah, you want me to amend it?
if you'd be willing to.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good event.
It is.
and,
Yep.
Well attended.
Yeah, so I'll. If it's all right with the chair, I'd like to amend it to 5 years.
Absolutely.
good with that.
You're okay? Any further discussion? Now to call a question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, any abstain? So be it. Thank you. Third one,
I'll take that one. The last one we have on there is authorizing the selection of the top ranked architectural engineering firms and planning consultants for the airport for the next 5 years. You're all aware, this is a requirement by FAA that we need to have for a 5-year period consultants on kind of on a term agreement with us. We just received the proposals. Last time we had the proposals, I think we received 7 or 8 different consultants in the previous one. This time we only received 2 consultants. One of those was Clough Harbor and the other one was McFarland Johnson. So it had to be determined in here, but now since we have the results and we've gone through them, we're going to award it to both or have both of them on as the firms to use. So it would be for Clough Harbor and for McFarland Johnson. And that'd be for the next 5-year cycle.
And would they help with the development of the airport modernization plan?
Yes, yep.
Good.
and how would they be selected? We got both of them. Is it just, you take
We,
the first one first?
yeah, it depends. We know the capabilities of both firms. Both firms are more than capable of doing any of the type of work that we have at the airport. We don't favor one over the other. We say, okay, this one's got this one, we'll go to the next one and switch it over. And then right now, I think we have McFarland doing the airport master plan. As well as maybe the PAPI. So maybe the next project that we have come up over the next, several years, or it might be a South Harbor project.
Very good. Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, within our bid if we didn't put it within our bid specifications, definitely want it in the contract that all of the products and items produced by the consultants are the ownership of Warren County.
We have that in the
And
bid.
that I think it also make it clear that whatever products, one product company develops at the request of Warren County can be migrated to the other consultant for their use. That way we're not having to pay for things twice.
Yep. Yes.
Good point. Anyone else? If not, I'll call a question. Oh, I thought we already had. Oh, then we
Make the most.
started the discussion a little premature. Motion by Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor DeRossi. Any further discussion? If not, call a question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstention? Thank you. Under discussion items, we have the solar farm update.
So Ryan McCune is here from Nextam. I'll have him speak to it, but I believe, and I can have Robert also talk to it, Nextam may be looking for an extension on their lease to get things built. I believe they had until August this year. And I don't believe, based on, the approvals and such that they've gone through with town and other approvals, that they're going to make that August deadline. So if the chairman will allow me, Ryan, if you'd like to stand up to the podium.
Yeah, absolutely. Very official. All right, well, I think first and foremost, thanks for having me. So my name is Ryan McCune. You guys are going to be likely much more familiar with my former coworker Dallas Manson, who had taken these projects through permitting. Dallas left Nexamp for a kind of a larger international developer in December of last year. So I've taken over these projects to move them forward. My role is I'm the director of the New York State market. So I used to be Dallas's manager and managed all the projects across New York. So as a reminder, Nexamp, I think at this point, we're at about 110 projects across New York State that have been financed or in various stages of construction. As was alluded to, we are looking for an extension on the existing leases, specifically the development and construction periods of the leases that we have with the county and the airport, to give us a bit of runway out to August of next year. So the original proposal that had been handed off to county attorneys was for kind of a one-year extension with optional further extensions due to national grid delays. There certainly were some delays with the permitting process, specifically FAA approvals, that took significantly longer than we anticipated on this project. And that did delay our financing. It did delay a lot of our procurement schedules and ultimately delayed our deployment on this project. But realistically, in my opinion, the largest driving factor for this extension is not what took a long time in the past. It's what we're seeing is going to take a long time in the future, specifically work with National Grid. So we made 100% payments on our interconnection service agreements, which is, the amount of money we need to pay for upgrades. We made those payments in October of last year. Under National Grid's, what we call the SIR, the Standardized Interconnection Regulations, National Grid is supposed to get us designs, necessary easements, all those different things within 6 weeks of us making those final payments. On the Southern project, we're still waiting for. And that was almost a year and a half ago that we made those payments. And so we're pushing them consistently, but until they get final designs, they can't place orders on equipment. And because we are at pad mounted equipment here due to FAA regulations, we are dealing with some pretty crazy lead times. So for those of you who are familiar, 3-in-1 transformers, pad mounted 3-in-1 transformer lead times are between like 35 and 52 weeks right now, just to get them on site. It's crazy. Not to mention the 200% markups that we're dealing with across. the board.
all?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, we got a deal. So part of Nexamp's calculus to date about, why we haven't been more bullish on getting out there is because just like anyone else, we do not want stranded assets, right? We can get out there and we can complete the entire site and, put the, whatever it is, $18 million of the 2 projects in there. But until National Grid turns them on, they're nothing but hunks of metal in the ground. And as you could imagine, the cost of capital for us to have that out there and producing 0 income, 0 revenue is not particularly attractive. So at this juncture, National Grid has told us they are going to be delivering the necessary easements for the northern project. They told me by end of year, but we haven't seen them yet. I'm going to keep pushing. We were going to continue working through that easement process with them. But do anticipate that this year extension will at least get us to where we're in a position to really push National Grid hard from a regulatory perspective, because they have been relatively egregious in their delays to date. One other shift that has happened since the leases on this project were signed that's worth noting is National Grid has taken a very interesting tact with solar developers starting in, I think it was early, probably end of first quarter in 2022. Was that they have started asking us as solar developers to secure the necessary easements for their equipment upgrades. So on any given project, we might have, say we have a facility, it's 2 miles from a substation. On any given project, across that entire 2-mile run of line, they're going to do a title search for that entire 2-mile run of line. And more often than not, they're going to discover that they don't actually have title to a lot of that. And so what they require us to come and do is actually secure easements on their behalf to get their title up to snuff. As you might imagine, a solar company negotiating on behalf of National Grid with landowners is also a lengthy process. And so we're going through those motions with them currently. But between that and the lead time items for some of the equipment, we think that this year-long extension is frankly going to be absolutely necessary for us to work on this project. Just to give some context, following, as Supervisor Stroh had mentioned, we had a vote on the decommissioning agreements and all the necessary bonding and cash surety requirements for those projects that were voted on and approved on Monday. So at this point, we are waiting on our pre-construction meeting and are looking to do our tree clearing on this project as soon as possible, hopefully next week. And our team is looking to do civil deployment on this project, likely starting in early May. So we're going to be out there and getting cracking pretty quickly. We do expect to be able to move relatively fast on this project. Geotech looks great. There's not going to be a lot of subsurface issues that could slow things down on other projects. So we do anticipate being mechanically complete before this next August date. The real question comes, will National Grid have gotten out of our way at that juncture? So as I discussed with the county attorney, we're fine with doing a year extension for now. And if we get to say 10 months in and we're like, hey, National Grid is still dragging their feet, we might come back to this board and ask for an additional extension. I really hope that's not the case. We want to get this thing done. We want to start paying the county and we want to start making power. And at this juncture, that year extension will give us the runway to get steel in the ground, get things moving, and put us in a position to better negotiate and put pressure on National Grid over the coming months.
Thank you very much. Before we get to questions, I'll say from my personal experience, I have had numerous dealings, interface with National Grid over the years. So I feel your pain.
Yeah, it's
for what that's worth.
It's super fun to do it, and it's even more fun to do it over 100+ projects around the state. So we take our lashings for sure.
Supervisor Conover?
I'll make a motion to bring this to the floor for consideration, then I have a comment.
A second, Supervisor Gerasi.
The purpose of the time threshold is to make sure that our property isn't tied up for an extended period of time for naught. And that's not the case here. This is the trials and tribulations of doing projects like this. And I think an extension here is understandable and hopefully will take us to completion.
Right. I would just ask, are there any implications or impacts for the county related to this?
I guess I would say that it just, I believe it's, and Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, it's $170 a month lease right now until they get construction, so we would go along with those same parameters that's in the existing lease now.
Yes, that would continue the same. It's $170 a month rent divided between the two lots. It averages $85 a month for each of the two lots. That continues in this period of, development construction where Nexamp is seeing if it's worthwhile and starting to do whatever planning they need to do to get the project built and developed. That would continue until it gets connected to the grid and starts generating power, and they can start earning money from producing the solar power and pumping it into National Grid. And then it would go, the rental amounts would go up to what they are in the lease here for the two lots. It would be more for the bigger solar array than the smaller array and that. So in the meantime, the county still gets the rent money that it's getting during this, preliminary period, and then all it would be doing is, putting that time, that time period for when we can get the full rent is farther away than was originally anticipated. Maybe the 3-year limit in the beginning wasn't realistic, given it was signed in August 25th of 2021, and it wasn't until into 2022 that they were able to really start getting work going there anyway. So maybe that was a little bit overly optimistic time projection in the first place on our part. To assess for 3 years.
Thank you for that. Supervisor Stroud?
Yeah, thank you. Ryan, you have to pay for the easement and secure the easements. Is that for the run from the solar site over to the substation?
Yeah, so generally any area where poles, wires, or associated equipment may need to be upgraded. So I would say in 90% of cases, yes, we're talking about upgrades back to the substation on the feeder in question. In some cases, it's an extension of said feeder, or in some cases, National Grid will require additional changes due to downstream constraints on additional feeders. It's really on any given project that changes, but I would say generally speaking, you're correct.
So, and there's two other projects in that immediate area. There's the CVE project just south of you.
Yep.
And then there's the BASF project. What if they have to use the right of ways that you secured?
So we're securing them for National Grid. So if we secure those on National Grid's behalf, then they should thank us because they won't have to.
But you're paying for it, right?
So it depends.
Yeah.
In certain cases, yes. In many cases, you'll have a landowner, for example, who has a power line going across their yard. And National Grid will come and say, hey, you've got this line here. It's either an unrecorded easement or maybe it wasn't well defined. And a landowner will say, okay, fine, whatever. It's, recorded. It is what it is. You guys, because the reality is if folks say no, National Grid can just condemn it and take it anyway. So for them, it's in their best interest to just kind of get it over with. And so in those cases, if we secured those easements for National Grid, again, we're getting a landowner to sign a piece of paper that grants National Grid rights, not us. So in those cases, those other developers, if they needed access to those same lines or easements, then we would be getting those on their behalf as well.
Not easy. I asked because we have 7 solar projects,
Right.
solar farm projects
Yep.
in Queensbury right now.
Yep.
Big one.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So,
Superintendent.
Ryan, most of those though, especially going to the substation down on Queensbury Avenue, that's all within our right of way. That's all within, all those utility poles are within county right of way.
There are some that are not,
Okay.
or there are some areas where poles need to be replaced and the poles may be on the line. And it's that ambiguity that kills us. Because any place that there's ambiguity, National Grid's legal team sees an opportunity to shore up that ambiguity and they put that responsibility on us.
Okay.
So it changes. There are some actual line extensions for the northern project that need to happen that are actual new infrastructure in order to bring the 3-phase over to the project.
Right.
Those ones are likely going to be the most difficult to secure. The other easements are, some might be difficult, some might not. It depends on the person you're dealing with. But for the ones that are in the right of way, and certainly there will be a few, we won't have to chase those at all. It's just the deviations and some of the variability there.
Thank you. Yes, Mr.
Ryan, just as a reminder, again, Robin Mapp, Airport Manager. To start work within the airport, you will have to submit the form 7460-1, either your consultant or myself.
Mhm.
And that has a 30 to 90-day lead time.
Mhm.
Probably won't start work next week.
Yeah.
But that's simple form to fill out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll be in line with our timing. Again, we needed to kind of get through this decommissioning question with the town, of which we've done. And for what it's worth, the work that needs to be conducted in the short term is just vegetation removal. So by my understanding, because we're not actually doing, material modification or disturbance, we wouldn't need to file that in the short term, but we'll certainly get that ready to go and get that out to you.
Supervisor McGowan?
Thank you. Maybe to help move this on with National Grid, why don't you just kind of mention that this power is going on the grid for New York City, because they got that line, and what you think going from north of Montreal all the way down to New York City. And if you just see the staging out on Route 4 going to Whitehall, it's just a small section of that, but you talk about leasing and rights of ways. I just look at that and I just, how long you have worked on this project, for a much smaller, but they're running that, 300 something miles. It just blows my mind how quickly that seemed to evolve and move forward. And here,
Yeah.
you're waiting for simple plans. So,
that for
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
It is what it is. And you have a different set of tools on your belt when you're dealing with those larger interconnection projects that service the region versus the type of project that NextAmp develops, which is a smaller community-based project where we've got local generation, local consumption. They're just a different beast.
That it? Anyone else? If not, first off, we need to clarify what the motion is. We did not have a formal stated motion, so
I'll talk to it and let Robert change. This would be a motion to amend the existing lease for 1 year.
Extend the period, which, like an option period in the development and construction phase of it. It's an option period. And extending that for 1 year would have ended August 24th, 2024. It began August 25th, 2021, would end at midnight on August 24th, 2024, and we're extending it until August 24th, 2025 for that 1 year period.
what is the name of this?
Option lease.
It's just an option, in a development and construction period here where NextAmp is basically seeing if it's viable to even do this and if they want to go forward with it.
All right with that? Thank you. If there's no further discussion, let's call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstain? Thank you.
Just
Thanks, Ryan.
Just one clarification, just for the record, there are two separate leases. So there are options for both the Northern Gateway project and the Southern Gateway project. So this would actually be two amendments
for
to
each.
those leases.
It's the same time period for both parcels.
Thank you, Rob.
Without
Okay with that? Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks,
Thanks,
Ryan.
Robin.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next.
Buildings and grounds.
Okay. Moving on to buildings and grounds. Over the floor, public comment. None. Move down to the action agenda, new business. A request for new contract for overhead door repair.
Yep, the requested, as you just stated, new contract for overhead door repair. The rationale is the contract has been awarded to your approval to Winchep Overhead Door. They were the only company that actually put a proposal in for it. Is to commence on May 1st is their old one that they currently have, ends on April 30th of 2024. With a termination date of April 30th, 2025, with 2 1-year extensions available.
Very good. I'd like to bring that to the floor. Supervisor Thomas, second by Supervisor Strahl. Any discussion? Yes, Supervisor Conover.
The contract is, they're basically on call to come and repair the doors. And are these doors large enough where they have the safety, they come down inadvertently and,
Yes, the eyes on each door.
yes.
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There were a few, just to give you a background, there were a few prior to when I came on. And we've upgraded those to now they have the eyes because they were so old, they couldn't even accommodate the eyes.
Yeah, they're very heavy. If they
They
come
are.
down and
They're
they,
very heavy.
and they hit you, they're gonna hurt. Okay, thank you.
What's only on openers? The eyes,
Correct.
Correct.
all right? I mean, for ones that have the chain, if they're coming down, they're coming down. If the opener fails or the arm breaks, those eyes don't do anything. I mean, all that does is stop someone from crossing.
Right.
Well, certain size door has to have that crash bar so that if it comes down, hits something, it stops.
It locks at a certain point.
These doors are not large enough that they don't fit into that requirement.
Some of them
Some,
do,
I was gonna say.
some of them do.
Yeah, and I mean, something we have to deal with today, but it's something obviously you should think about, right?
We can certainly, with the approval of this contract, work with Winship. On making sure that any of our doors that are or don't have that device. We can certainly have them install it as part of this.
Yeah, I mean, I forget there's, at a certain size, they're really recommended for safety reasons.
Anyone else? I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, any abstention? Thank you. Now, on to discussion items. I'll let Mr. Rogers take that.
Discussion items, first one, of course, is the work order request program, currently at 4,609. Work requests that have been completed. We do have 25 currently outstanding. The fleet car request program is at 3,092 requests. Sent out and used.
Regional morgue update. You care to?
So
That-
yes, I will talk that. So as of last meeting, I said that we didn't necessarily care for kind of the final write-up that was done by the consultants. We wanted to tell a better story. So we worked with the consultants as well as my staff to provide you with that report. You all have that feasibility study in front of you now. So the next step of this, and John and I just spoke about it, that he'll be sending this study to the other counties that participated in the kind of the data collection up front for this. And then I believe inter-county is the 25th of April, and we'll be providing a presentation to those counties as well.
What counties are we dealing with?
Clinton, Essex, Washington, Warren, Hamilton,
in here.
Fulton. Yeah, and Saratoga. Yep.
Thank you.
I would ask you all to review the report. What you don't have in this report is the appendices, and that's just a lot of the data collection that we had done. I can certainly provide that, but I wanted it just to be kind of the report itself. Nothing references that. We just talk about it throughout the entire report. But I believe it gives us a pretty good picture of why the regional morgue is needed. The last 2 pages are probably of the most interest to all, and that's the cost to construct this facility and the cost to operate this facility. Some of those numbers for staff may differ a little, because based on conversations with Dr. Sikorica and some of the coroners, maybe some of those investigators won't be needed. A lot of those investigations are for criminal autopsies, and we don't necessarily have a lot of that here or in any of the counties surrounding us. But there are times that there are investigators, but basically the investigators that are used for us around here are coroners. One of the things that we didn't realize when we were putting this in there is I have those costs associated with autopsies, and it ranges from 3,000 to 3,500 to 4,000. And it increases, over this 30-year period. In all reality, when we put those numbers together, we did it that we were kind of paying ourselves for the autopsies as well. That's something we'll have to look into. Maybe we still do that, and then it's considered part of the operating expense, or we look at it a little bit differently where we're not paying ourselves necessarily, because this would be our staff. This would be, county employees that would be operating this facility. So with that being said, please read through it. You have any questions, please let me know. Again, John will get this out to the other counties associated, and then we'll present this at inter-county.
So safe to say these 6 counties, in addition to Warren County, have expressed some interest in
They all have,
participating and utilizing this facility.
that's correct.
Very good, thank you. Supervisor Stroud?
I mentioned it before. It appears to be a very good location up the back of, where the old West Mount facility used to be. And this might be a regional cost. But that piece of property right now has a value of, I would say more than 2 million, based on what I'm seeing in Queensbury. We would lose that. We put it there. How would that go into the mix of sharing the cost with the other counties? Because now we have a piece of property of X value, we could have it appraised. That has to go into the mix, okay?
Yeah, and I think those are the numbers that we need to kind of dial down a little bit more in, is how is this going to be broken up with the other counties? We listed some funding mechanisms in there and such, but the bottom line is, will it be Warren County footing the cost to put this facility in, and then all the other counties paying into it? Based on the numbers that we see, this isn't a moneymaker. It would most likely be cost neutral. But again, that we've laid out the numbers and costs associated with it, but the next kind of dialing down into the finer details would be who funds this, how it gets funded, why it gets funded. Is it a participating share to construct it? Is it not? Those we haven't, and I think that'll be the discussion with the other counties.
Well, I think that, let me just interject, it isn't a money maker, but I think that it certainly would be viewed as somewhat of a savings. In other words, if we don't do anything, part of the impetus for doing this is the projection that if we don't do anything, the cost for the region, Warren County, whatever, sending autopsies out, having them done somewhere else, just continues to escalate. And this would help to control that and maybe mitigate that, so.
And I agree, thank you. It looks like a project, since it serves a regional need and the cost will be shared somehow. We don't know what the formula will be regionally. I'm just saying that, Warren County has to get credited for, what it's putting in. That piece of property.
No,
is
it's a
very
good point,
valuable.
and that would have to be factored or entered into
Yeah.
this. Very good point,
But I would think there'd be federal and state funding to help us out.
would hope. Yes, Supervisor Conover.
Yes, I think this is a good start, and it really helps to provide some numbers that can go into an operating plan. So for example, the estimated annual operating cost, by my reading, may or may not include the capital costs. Probably doesn't include at this stage the capital costs. And because we don't know how the financing is going to take place, but to go to Mr. Stroud's question, if we're going to provide dollars or provide land, they could easily go into the capital costs list here, land acquisition, $2 million, $2.5 million, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Because they're basically this, I'll call it this enterprise fund is actually purchasing the property
Mhm.
from the county. That would provide dollars, John, to do other things. And the other thing is what I don't see, it gives some ideas, but
you know, it would be good to have an idea of the methodology of assessment, if you see what I'm saying. In other
Mhm.
words, that you have people that may bring a few, you have others that may bring many to the morgue. And how is that fairly and evenly applied to all the participating partners? And that's very important, because if you approached me and you want me to partner in the project, that's what I'm going to be looking at, is how am I treated within this arrangement? Am I being treated fairly within this arrangement compared to other my other partners? And so I think that, you know, ideally, this hopefully has been done elsewhere, and if it's been done elsewhere, that methodology might be of interest to us. It might be a shortcut to get us where we got to go.
Right, I think that possibly it's similar to what you would pay anywhere else. In other words, on a case-by-case basis, you'd be assessed so much. In other words, $3,000 per autopsy. And I would think that, you know, we'd apply that same rationale, but maybe not.
Well, to continue, I mean, for example, whether you bring 1 or 100, we have a continuing cost of building the facility. So perhaps the capital cost is handled in some flat rate, on some flat rate basis, but the operating cost, which is what you're, I think, talking about, is the operating cost has more to do with the volume of the business.
Yeah.
But the capital cost of constructing the facility,
Correct.
again, it's not unlike a sewer or water district, for example, and I see Chairman over there, you know, there's a minimum cost to participate.
Right.
You know, that would be the kind of thing that I think that would be the next step, and to maybe zero in on the capital side a little bit more. Because I think once you have that, then I think you've got the foundation of a business plan.
Administrator Tappan.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, the capital cost is going to be, that's going to be the big challenge, getting the counties to come up with a figure that we're seeing here at about 26 million. The other issue we have is Saratoga. So the other county close to us who has done this is Rensselaer County. They built their own, and then they're charging a fee for the service. If we did the same, the fee for the service would probably cover the annual operating cost of the facility, but we're still going to be on the hook for the capital cost. And the issue with Saratoga, they're the biggest user by the study. However, their preference is going to be based on what's most convenient for them. So the northern part of Saratoga County would probably want to use Warren County. Excuse me, but the southern part is going to want to use Rensselaer County because it's easier for them and probably closer for them. So that's a challenge we're going to have to work through. We'll make this presentation at Intercounty, and I think our recommendation is going to be shared responsibility for the capital cost, but getting there is probably going to be the biggest challenge.
Well, there are different ways of doing this, as you know. I mean, I mentioned an enterprise fund, but there are other operating situations where have received specific state authorization to conduct regional type public interest activities. So it's also conceivable to me that some type of regional district or authority could be created whereby something like this could be done. I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying there's all different ways of doing this. What's the recommended way? Which we don't want is, I mean, it would seem to me that when you start talking about 29 or $30 million, and if we say that here today, you can imagine what it's going to be when we finally get around to doing it. You know, that has to be solid. In other words, we have to have the absolute contractual commitment on that. And on the operating side, I mean, just to turn the lights on, I mean, takes a certain commitment, contractual commitment over time. And I think that, you know, that's where the operating plan comes into play. Okay, here's how we're going to organize it. Here are the options on how we can organize. Here are the pluses and minuses of all of that. So it's conceivable to me that it might not even be owned. Facility might not even be owned by Warren County.
Right, and we'll get to all that a
Mhm.
little further down the road. Appreciate all the kind of good comments and, we'll just stay with that, but,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I did neglect to add that there will be some federal funding available for this. There's going to be a large local match if that first. We're also looking at the congressionally directed spending requests we can put into the senators. It's really difficult to make this fit into the categories they have this year. I plan on calling the staff now that we have a study and provide them a copy of the study and see if there's a possibility we can get it into, for support from Senators Gillibrand and Schumer.
Supervisor Thomas.
Yeah, I just would like to mention that the county does own the two lots between 9 and the Northway. Across from us and then towards Great Escape. And the one across from us, that might be an ideal spot for a morgue because not a lot of traffic, you know,
True.
not like shopping or. So that might be something to look at.
Another good point. We'll keep that in mind.
Just one other comment, John, to the county administrator. Going out and securing grants, all that's great. And it certainly helps on the front end. But the capital cost really demands a capital reserve be established that reflects the capital cost, because everything has a life cycle cost. And you can't necessarily rely on that type of funding going forward. And so, and all that needs to be worked into the operating plan so that we have as sharper numbers we can produce.
Thank you. So. Very good discussion, and we'll just continue. And we'll know a lot more, I think, once we've had discussions with the other potential participants. So thank you very much for all that. Next is the Joseph Warren Museum update.
So, I just want to make everybody aware, we did receive the bids for the Joseph Warren Museum. All said and done, it was definitely a significant sticker shock. Between the HVAC, electrical, plumbing, and general construction, general contracting bid. I believe the bids, which we would recommend to award to the contractors who were the lowest responsive bidders, is 900, and I don't think I have the number in front of me, 996,000. So it's almost $1 million. Julie Butler, the purchasing, said that the contractors would definitely hold their price. They're also very itchy to get out there and do the work as soon as possible. I wanted to bring a discussion here to committee first because I don't at this point know what we're doing with funding for the project. I know there was talk of OCTAX money. I believe there was a 600,000 for OCTAX, but that still doesn't cover the total cost of construction for this project moving forward. And this is with county staff doing a significant amount of the field groundwork as part of that project, and we still got those type of bids. It's not like we were shortchanged with bidders. We had plenty enough bidders that bid, but these are the prices that came in. So I guess I wanted to kind of bring that to the committee's attention, and then again, the contractors will only hold their prices probably for 60 days. And that was 60 days from the submittal of the bid. But I'm not sure where we want to go and what we want to do from here on out. So I think it's
Supervisor Conover.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem to me that shortly we should have a recommendation from our staff that says, here's the plan we recommend for financing this. And it, for example, if we felt that there was, I'll just pick a number, $500,000 available from OCTAX today, right? To be able to move forward. And the balance, we're going to either borrow from the fund balance if we can, or we do a revenue anticipation note and then we pay, which we pay back over the next 3 or 4 years out of OCTAX. And here's the plan. And those that agree with it say aye, and those that say, say no. And it should be done in pretty short order, it seems to me. So it's, if you don't feel we have sufficient cash on hand today, which I can understand, this is a sizable amount of money. We have other obligations, responsibilities under our tax. It's, but nevertheless, we have sufficient cash stream there to be able to handle this. I mean, for example, we provide the Civic Center, $250,000 in operating, but we also provided them $100,000 a year over a 5-year period for capital improvements. So we've done this before. My point is, oh, and not to mention the house next door, right? We provided them a grant. So we've done this before. It's simply a question of, picking your poison, so to speak, and getting it out there and getting it done.
Administrator Top.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, right. We should have had a recommendation probably today. We talked about the ways to fund it. There is not enough money to fund the entire amount in occupancy tax. There would be an ability to pay it off over time using occupancy tax, and I think the committee has been favorable towards that, but it hasn't been brought to the committee and said, in terms of this is what we'd need. So the other options we looked at was taking out of the general fund and paying back to general fund. I think the preference for the treasurer, the treasurer's not here yet. I think the preference for the treasurer is to take out a bond note and borrow that money and then pay it back, and we can pay it back with occupancy tax. So that'd be easy, that'd be doable. So
Just,
we could have.
you could take out I assume, and I'll stand corrected, I mean, you could take out a band about anticipation note on the entire amount. And then retire it sooner. So for example, you find yourself at a point in time where in year 1, okay, we can pay this whole thing off, we'll pay it off. Or you retire $500,000 of it because you got $500,000. You don't take the full 5 years to go into a full bond. We don't expect to do that, but we need to get off the dime on the project, and this is how we intend to do it. And then it keeps you flexible that way. So now you've got the flexibility of adjusting, going forward. And oh, by the way, in that approach, there would be no direct cost to the general fund or the general taxpayer, right? Because it's a revenue, it's basically revenue in, expense revenue in out of OCTAX. So there's really no effect on the general taxpayer.
I'm reeling over the prices. I mean, to build the equivalent size structure brand new would be about half that. So I'd like to be able to go through it, and I suppose we will at our Joseph Warren Museum Committee meeting. Go through it and see what in particular is driving the high costs. I mean, it's about double what I expected. I'd just like to review it. I mean, is it cheaper to take down the building, build a new? Seems that based on that, and then, anything over 500,000, you got Wick's Law. So I'm just here
Right, I agree. So
shaking my head.
So these were lump sum bids, lump sum contracts. Myself, Tom Sambari sat with, the biggest one that we were concerned with was the general contractor, and made sure that he understood the project. And he did. I mean, and the bottom line, the numbers that we had projected originally were 600,000+ anyway. Yes, the $50,000 more, but we had already projected 600,000 for that work. So, and John, I don't, maybe you'd get, something brand new for that price. But with what we've seen, and I talked about this with Supervisor Connor this morning, the prices have increased across the board. I mean, we just did Main Street bid in Johnsburg, and we're looking at $110 to $120 placement of asphalt pavement. That's unheard of. Last year it was $80. So that's pay replace. That's not, like you guys pave your own, but the prices have significantly increased. I mean, we're seeing inflation rates across the board at 58%.
How many square feet is that?
Mm,
2,500?
maybe.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you build a 2,500 square foot house in Queensbury right now, your cost to build it, not what it would sell for, it would sell for around 600,000, 500,000. But it'd be about 400,000 to build.
Yeah, but there's specialty items in this
I was gonna
project as
say,
well,
you-
and that's the thing, it's not, you're asking for that 1700s, 1800s
You want to
look,
replicate,
and you're trying to replicate, and you know, there was discussions of getting the wood from the Amish, I mean, that there's cost associated with all those, so I think that's
Well,
the
that's
answer.
what we need to do is go through this and see. if-
Yeah, but you're not gonna see, John,
you're not gonna pay 200,000.
you're not gonna see item by item of how it cost unless we ask for the breakdown from the contractor, which they may be hesitant to do. This was their lump sum bid that they put in for the project. So, I mean, but again, I would recommending awarding to the lowest responsive bidders today for the contracts. And then we don't have to move forward with them. We can always,
Negotiate.
right.
But again, from my experience, you know, it's 900,000, let's say, round number is, not in excess of what you expected, but in order to get that close, you're talking about shaving a couple 100,000 off, and that's just not gonna happen, guarantee that. So, anyway, yes,
The only
Chairman.
thing I would say is we have a fiscal advisors we use on staff. We've used them before. So once we figure out the financing, we should go to them. Let them review maybe a couple of these. I mean, in the more, program, it said we should use fiscal advisors to lay out a game plan for us. And same with this, you know, we're sitting here saying, well, should we take from this? Should we take from that? We ought to lay it out for our fiscal advisor to say, what is the best use and how do we do this with the best cost savings to the county? I mean, we're sitting here thinking, oh, we're gonna take from acting tax or take from general fund. We ought to get some advice on it. We've done it before. We used to do it frequently back in when we were hurting for money, so we need to do it again. I would suggest.
Point.
Just,
Administrator
my question, I think May is our drop dead, kind of our drop dead date if we want to get it done. in
Otherwise,
time.
otherwise we'll be going back out to bid again. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, I mean, without knowing how exactly we're gonna finance this, I can't see any other option but to table this today, subject to. I mean, I'm willing to come back for a special meeting. I'm willing to do whatever the chair thinks is necessary, but I don't know how we can act on this today until Mr. Strauss had a chance to sit down with Kevin and his people to satisfy his concerns, and the budget officer and John have had a chance to get together to make a solid, like what Kevin's saying, to make a solid, here's how we're gonna do it. And
What's the feeling of the rest of committee members? You agree with tabling it, and we will probably have to schedule a special meeting in order to continue on a proper timetable, if you were schedule.
Yeah, I think we can bring all that together and get it before the April board meeting through. I'd want to we need to talk to the OCTAX committee as well, and tourism committees.
Just confirm the timeframes. It's a 60-day guarantee of the bid. What
They
is that
had-
60 days of?
And I'll have to talk to Julie. They had 45 days, that any contractor has 45 days with our bidding process to hold their bids. I think they would extend upwards of 60 days.
When would that be?
I don't know what that date is exactly, but I can certainly find that out. But I agree with Administrator Tathland that maybe I might be able to have all this information by finance. I mean, and then we can kind of make a decision through finance of maybe what route we take or where we go. Whether we use the financial advisors kind of to look at this, and I can certainly set up a meeting probably the beginning of next week to go through this with the committee.
Okay, let's move it along.
I mean, if it has to go to finance, I'm willing to
move this, approve and move this along to finance. And that way we're not required to meet on the project again. Finance is gonna, it has to go to finance anyway. So and a number of our board members, I mean, how many of our, are on, you chair finance, right? Yes, sir. You chair finance, and who else is on finance? Mr. Bruin. So we have 3 of our board members are on finance, so, you know, and they understand the discussion took place today.
Right.
So if you want to move it along to finance, I'm good with that.
And I believe that's what Kevin was saying. We can always rescind it or alter it or amend it. But to get this in motion, I think he was saying what Ron was saying second.
Okay, so we're all in favor of moving this to finance. What do we need to do?
I guess what I would ask is, do we want to just, at least for now, award to the lowest responsive bidders? So you don't want to do that. I'm just saying, because you, as Supervisor Strauss said, and I said earlier, even if you awarded to him, you can rescind the awards.
Well, what was the date that you gave the 60 days from?
If,
Oh, you don't know.
I could certainly shoot Julie a text and see if she can respond back to me,
Well,
but I know we're.
Finance is next Friday.
Next
Right.
Friday, yes.
right, but I'm talking about the
Right.
60-day window. Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you. I feel that, due to the time constraints of trying to get this done for the 250th anniversary, we're really pushing it. And I understand the need and want to get it done. We've, you know, it's taken a long time to get this far, but with these numbers coming out and pushing it, I think, you know, I am not in favor of sending this off in finance until we have a better plan. But I do not feel comfortable pushing this and cramming it out there and, you know, and making decisions without a plan in hoping. I mean, yes, we all always can rescind it, but in the past, when we have done this, it's always come back to bite us. So
I think that's the idea of sending it to finance, correct? That it would, we'd have a plan, yes or no? At the finance committee, is that correct? Or to Mr. McGowan's point?
well, from the sounds of it, what you were trying to do is put it onto finance, which is stacked, which is, you know, with 9 people, which is great. But, you know, we're sitting here in a committee and saying, well, geez, we just got prices that are, you know, pretty much $300,000 more than what we expected. You know, where we're gonna get the money? We can't even come up with an idea. We're a little shocked at the price. So, you know, but I'm just one vote.
I think we can come up with an idea. We have several ideas. What's the pleasure of the committee? Anyone?
Well,
I say we move it forward. You know, and we just appropriated $3 million here at the last board meeting. So, you know,
And with a good plan, as I think a couple have been stated.
I mean, I share Brad's concerns.
Yeah.
But, and I'm hoping we can make some alterations, but in the meantime, if we don't start the process now, it's going to delay that whole process, going from here to finance and so forth. And that may come back and bite us. In the meantime, we'll look for potential savings. But I agree with Frank. I think let's start, as much as we don't like what we're hearing. Let's start the process and see if we can't make it better as it moves along.
Okay, everybody? Supervisor McGowan? Okay with that?
I'll be opposing.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Supervisor Conover?
Is that a motion?
I don't know.
You want a motion to,
Motion to refer to finance, a motion, basically awarding.
That'd be the motion. The motion would be to engage the lowest bidder and also refer to finance. Is that correct?
Well, I think what you're doing is referring to finance you're gonna be asking them to take action to, award to the lowest responsible bidder and determine a source of funding. So they need to-
Okay. Everybody okay with that? I know Mr. McGowan isn't, but
I would say.
Let's say that again.
want to state that?
Yep, the motion is gonna be to refer to finance, a request to award to the lowest responsible bidder and determine a source of funding.
Can we change the order of that?
We can.
I mean, in order to award the lowest bidder and then look at financing, that doesn't sound. Shouldn't we look at, make sure we have finances before we award it to the lowest bidder?
If
Yeah.
you don't have the funding for it, you can't award the contract.
Right.
Well,
Well-
I was just listening to the words.
Okay,
I can go with that.
okay, thank you. Motion. Supervisor Strauss, second by Supervisor Drossy. Any further discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Abstained? Thank you very much. We can move way behind.
We can do the other quickly.
Yep, I was gonna say, phase 4 court project, currently is at 30% completion. Progressing right along plan, should be done by the end of April, completed by the end of April.
Referral and pending items, the design for updates to front entrance.
Waiting till court project is done, we'll see how much funding we have left over.
Sounds good.
And then number 2 is the magnetometer, and it was brought to everybody's attention that we had 2 manufacturers who want to provide demonstrations. One of them provided a demonstration and then had told in a Zoom meeting that the cost would be somewhere in the vicinity of $20,000. And they just came back with their proposals. And I believe the cost was, as of yesterday, was $133. As of today, it's $142,000
$167,000.
or $167,000.
$2,000 a year.
Yep.
It's basically a 4-year contract. From $168,000. That's for the 2 magnetometers plus their software for a 4-year program with them maintenance, updates and everything. That was from Evolve.
Right, that's one.
That's one of the potential.
Okay.
That's quite a ways from 20. isn't it?
20, yeah, quite a ways. I want to step back real quick. I just got from Julie. So actually that date for the Joseph Warren is April 15th. So it's the board meeting to award to those contractors.
But we're gonna finance, we'll put this on the agenda. For
Yep, I
finance.
just wanted to give you the date.
Thank you, appreciate it. Is next Thursday? Week from-
Friday.
No,
Friday.
Okay, week from this Friday.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so we should have some direction at the finance committee meeting a week from Friday. So we should still be okay with respect to. So with magnetometer, we're gonna continue, we're gonna talk to another vendor, is that correct?
That is correct. We have another vendor that's interested.
So we'll get the other one and then, continue from there. Where's it going?
I thought we finally got the states.
We did. We're looking at other options that would fit better in that area.
Just a quick comment, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That will not fit in that area at all. So that's, that magnetometer we have can't be utilized there. Also, you have information on Evolve Technology in your packet. That cost is significantly more than is reflected in the, on referral pending item number 2. It's $20,000 per set just for the year, just for the software. We also have to purchase the actual magnetometer setup
Right.
that it'll be, and that's about 47,000 or more each. So we're looking at a cost right now, if we were looking at here and human services, because the technology is so impressive, that it'd be about $150,000 to $175,000, in the first year. And then
Right.
for each setup, 20,000 here, 20,000 in human services, going forward every year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll continue this. Exploration. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain more. Motion to adjourn. Thank you. Apologize for the overrun seconds.